Good morning. Good morning. Today is the Christmas play, and I wanted to do a kind of a practice run, and maybe more than that. Cock crows. Anyway, I guess I'll just do the songs and think about. I'd like to confess. And I could do it at church, and I can do it with the pastor, and I probably will. But I got this, and there's a reason for it. And maybe it's just to get it out of my system. I don't know. Anyway, for today I will be performing We Three Kings, which I love this song for one particular reason. I love it because it's a beautiful song. But one of the reasons it's one of my particular favorites is because I get to showcase my multi-personality capabilities, which it is what it is. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him a king, king forever ceasing, ever over us all to reign. Well, see, I'm trying to sing it without looking. I want to be able to connect with the audience and not have to constantly look at the. Okay, I'm not there. I just I lose track trying to do these things all at once. So I need to see the lyrics. Okay. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide the deity nigh, prayer and praising voices rising, worshiping God on high. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guides to thy perfect light. Myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume breathes a life of gathering gloom, sorrowing, sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in the stone cold tomb. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guides to thy perfect light. Glorious now, behold him arise, King and God and sacrifice. Hallelujah, hallelujah, sounds through the earth and skies. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guides to thy perfect light. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. And then there's this song. Jesus is God. I consider it probably the best song I've ever read for several reasons. If you're looking at the real art and the real meaning of songwriting and the possibilities, the magic that extends beyond time. This is one of my finest song pieces, if God's pleased. I haven't decided whether to do this capoed or not. It was written just open neck, so. These are the God chords, literally G and D. This is part of the genius of this song. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. I'll sing it again and again and again. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Jesus is God in Jerusalem. Jesus is God in Jerusalem. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus Jesus is God in Jerusalem. Now sing again and again and again. Jesus is God in Jerusalem. Jesus is God of Abraham. Jesus is God of Abraham. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God of Abraham. Now say it again and again and again. Jesus is God of Abraham. Jesus is God of Israel. Jesus is God of Israel. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God of Israel. Now sing again and again and again. Jesus is God in Israel. Jesus is God of the whole wide world. Jesus is God of the whole wide world. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God of the whole wide world. Now sing again and again and again. Jesus is God of the whole wide world. Jesus is God in heaven and hell. Jesus is God in heaven and hell. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God in heaven and hell. Now sing it again and again and again. Jesus is God in heaven and hell. That's right. Jesus is God of the universe. Jesus is God of the universe. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God of the universe. I'll say it again and again and again. Jesus is God of the universe. Jesus is God in my heart. Jesus is God in my heart. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God in my heart. Now I'll sing again and again and again. Jesus is God in my heart. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Jesus is God in Bethlehem. Thank you. Yeah, I got I apologize. I've come to terms with some things. I am kind of responsible for, I'm responsible for so many things, even the things I don't. I'm just a human being. I made a lot of mistakes. You all know who I am. You know who my grandmother was. I don't know if you know the whole story, but my whole life, I joined the Navy, you know, and I had reasons. I had a lot of reasons. You know, at that time, I really bought into the Star Trek stuff, you know, Captain Kirk and the bridge, and, you know, and no more money, no more war, and all this. Basically, militarism is socialism. That's something I had to discover later. It's the perfect socialism. Nobody owns anything. Everybody does exactly what they're told, no matter what it is. Or they go away, one way or another. It's perfect socialism. If you can't hate socialism and love the military because they're the same thing. Get me? It's something that people got to come to terms with. Soldiers are soul dyers. That's what I had to come to terms with. I joined, I was just a couple of years older than most of the other. I was 20 and a lot of the others were, 17. The other fresh recruits, boots. And I was on a 3 and 3. 3 active and 3 unactive, whatever they called it. Anyway, mine was short. I like to say I got out on the early out program. But I was in for over 2 years, and I had a fantastically traumatic short career in the military. There wasn't a whole week that went by that there wasn't some kind of unbelievable drama. I had a 12-string guitar at that time. I went in to be a naval aviator, and that was denied me because I'm colorblind. And it was just the way it was. So, all God, all for a reason. But anyway, in my career, I went all the way from the naval aviators are the top of the food chain on a carrier. They're princesses or whatever. Anyway, but I went all the way down, and it's a long story. I went all the way from there to boatswain mate, a decade, and that was my own decision. I did score well enough on everything else, physically and mentally. I was more than up to the task. I was way up there. But the colorblindness thing. Anyway, so I had to go on the carrier after boot camp. And everybody knows about boot camp. As a decade, and I didn't mind. I always wanted to be a sailor. I wanted to see the world, and that's what I wanted. I chose that, and it was an enlightening experience. Like I said, there wasn't a whole week that went by that something. A great story. I have some great stories. I've got some great stories. I want to keep this short though, and kind of keep one of my jobs early on. I was already skilled, and when I came on board the carrier, they found out I could weld. First off, that I was a welder on the railroad before I joined, and they changed my designation. They said, you're no longer a seaman or deckhand, you're now a fireman, repair division, and you're going to be a welder. And not only that, I ended up being, basically, I took command of the ship's metalsmith shop, is what we called it, and it was where we fabricated things on the fly. When they needed something, we made it and we made it as fast as humanly possible. And there was a lot of times that they needed things made and things fixed. It was Star Wars. Under Reagan. And one of the jobs that I got was to install a Star Wars panel in the ship's command center and ship's intelligence and CIC, whatever that stood for, command and control or whatever. It was the brain of the ship, of the carrier, the USS Kitty Hawk. And I had to do it in 2 weeks. and there was nobody else who was capable. What they wanted, they had command and control central, which consisted of many screens, radar screens, oscilloscopes, buttons and switches and keyboards, and just an unbelievable, like, you've seen control panels in the steel mill, right? This was way beyond that. And they needed all of it taken out and put into the new Star Wars work center. It was, and what they gave me was literally an aluminum set piece from Star Trek, a blank aluminum set piece that had no holes in it, I had to take every single screen and every single keyboard and every single switch and every single button out of the old one, all the screens, all of it, and put it into the new blank panel, which had to have the holes cut for all of that stuff to be mounted in and wired in, which was a bundle of wires that was and I had 2 weeks to do it in Hawaii. I was fresh out of boot camp, and that's what my job was. And it had to be done, or the U.S. Kitty Hawk couldn't go on Westpac. So you can just imagine the pressure to get it done. So it started from the XO on down and on up. And it wasn't a whole 10 minutes between updates. They had to have an update to send up to probably the president, I don't know, whatever. But I was trying to do my job. And it was a very hard job to do. None of them were capable of doing it. And I had to deal with them every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 2 weeks. Actually, I didn't make it to the end. I only made it to the last day in Hawaii. And I was in the final stages of completing the job. And the XO, if I remember right, the executive officer, was number 2 and captain. He wanted another update. And I had to get right in his face and tell him I could not any longer do any updates if I was to complete the job on time and actually get to go ashore like everyone else on the ship. All of them, when they weren't getting updates, they were going out and whoring in Hawaii. And I had a little breakdown, and I got right in the XO's face, and I explained to him that because none of them could do the job, they needed to back off and let me do the job and forget about the updates for a little bit, you know? Anyway, that didn't go over very well. I got taken off the job, and a couple of my workers, I ended up being in charge of the sheet metal shop before it was over. But, there was there's short timers, and and they were all short timers. And they were getting out because they were cracking down on cannabis. Anyway, that's a long story. It's that led to a lot of things, that experience, and what I want to get to is taking a long way around that. In 2018 or so, I did a music video album called The Nothin. And it wasn't supposed to be a music video album. It was supposed to be an actual movie. I invested in a studio, and me and my son, we started the screenplay and whatnot. And the opening scene, the opening 3 minutes that you see in my music video, explaining the Nothin, is the only part of the original screenplay that made it into those movies, which turned into 4 going on 5 1-hour music video albums. The Nothing, the Everything, the Anything, the Something, and going into the Birthing, whatever that's going to be. Anyway, the Nothing's opening scene, which we didn't get into, opened up with a time that I ended up in the brig on the ship. Bread and water. It's a long story, but it was just part of it, another story and another thing that happened. And bread and water in the services, it's bread and water. It's meant to mess you up. But I particularly kind of like bread and water. I like bread and water. I like to make a dough ball and eat the dough ball. I really like bread and water. No problem. But that pissed them off, so they gave me moldy bread. I ended up doing 2. They took me out of that one and they took me to a special one. I guess for like folks they couldn't break in San Diego, a special brig. And it was a prison. It was like a modern prison, except, the goon squad had a motorcycle, full-face motorcycle helmets, so you couldn't, see who they were and whatnot. And these unbelievably padded outfits with boots, and you got your regular billy club. Well, these were like a quarter staff or whatever. These were like 4-foot long staffs that they had, and they could chack you up with them. Anyway, and literally it was bread and water, and it was moldy bread, and you got to set up your bed during the night, lights out, and set it back. You couldn't have there was no furniture except for the toilet sink thing in the corner, like a prison, like a cell. You can imagine. And the cell block we were in, it was only one-sided, and cells on one side of the hallway, and it was a cell block, and there was mirrors above each cell, so that you could see in the mirror down the hallway, and they could see down the hallway and into your cell, everybody's cell. And this is the opening of the Nothing. It opens up in that, and that's the set. That's the scene, the opening scene. And it's an actual experience that I had. I was near the end of the cell block. There was only one other cell on the other side of me. And I thought all these years later, I don't know what's real and what's not when what happened. Part of the reason I was in there was a drug thing. I had a tendonitis, and they gave me this. It was experimental at the time. I assumed it was. It was called Endicin. They use it. Old folks take it all the time now, but not a jar a day like I was doing. Which that was my fault, and that was their fault. We just was doing it together, and it was working. I was getting more work done than anybody. I was like Spider-Man. I could literally jump up and climb across the ceiling. Grabbing on the pipes and stuff and whatnot. I felt so, no pain, loose. What it did is it shrinks the platelets in your joints, is what they told me. Anyway, I couldn't get enough of it. And it was a problem that I had and that they had. And I finally broke my addiction, but it involved going to the brig. And so I was doing withdrawals at the same time. So this is crazy. It's just crazy. In the San Diego one, the special one for people that they couldn't, I had these events where the whole ship nearly mutinied. They actually called a khaki alert at one point because I became some kind of like a hero. It was I took on a giant. I I got into a fight with the ship's police, the MAAs, Master at Arms, and I was right. I was in the right, but they still took me in, and you can imagine. There's so many stories, but this one, anyway, it ends up I'm literally handcuffed and ankle cuffed, and over a piece of pipe, carried on a piece of pipe from the back of the carrier, the CHT system, the shit system where I was working, all the way up to the ship's brig, where they put me away, and it was a scrap. All it was a scrap. We had a fight, and there was nobody to break us up, so it was kind of brutal, it was a hard fight. Anyway, when I was in the San Diego brig, that's what I'm trying to get to, is the opening scene of the Nothin and what happened. And it's so bizarre. The guy in the cell next to me at the end of the cell block went crazy and started screaming, and apparently, they had a big process. Anyway, you couldn't even piss without asking permission, literally. Anyway, and he just went berserk, and he started pissing and shitting all over and stuff and throwing, I don't know, whatever, something. He was freaking out. He went crazy. And here they came, and all of us, down the rest of the cell block, watched kind of in horror as this goon squad, 3 or 4 guys in these outfits with these clubs. And here they come with their boots, hard, stomping hard, right past all of us. And they yelled for him to unlock the cell door. And then they went in, and it was short order. They beat the fuck out of him, And we all got to listen to it. We couldn't really see down that way. The mirrors were angled, Anyway, they drug him down, and he was, I don't remember him having a lot of clothes on or none, and there was blood. And they drug him right past all of us. And I'll just tell you the truth right now, after what I've been through and how I got there. They gave us the Bible, you see, and that was the one thing you had to read, reading material. They had the brig's rules and regulations, and the Bible, if you so desired. And I desired, and I took the Bible that my father gave me. I still have it, and I read it basically from cover to cover. Most of it in that one, and I ended up. Anyway, I cowered in the corner and hugged my Bible, because I was afraid to watch. I was afraid to be any part of it. I didn't want to get hurt. And we're in basically pajamas. And barefoot, prisoners. And these guys are brutal. They're brutal to this guy. And they take him down to the end of the hall, the cell block, and there's a box there, a metal box, about 3 by 3 by 3. And it's got a hasp on it, and opens up. And they take what clothes he has off, and they stuff him in there. And I mean stuff him. The worst kind of thing you can imagine. And of course the guys, anyway, they have to sit on the top of it to get it to close on him. And he's trying to breathe and trying to scream and trying to beg for mercy. And they're ruthless and cruel. They beat on the box, told him to shut the fuck up. And I'm pretty sure that fella died that. We all got to listen to it all night. And I went from there back to the ship, and I had to gather my gear and get on the helicopter and fly back to San Diego. And everything that I had going, all the good stuff I'd done and all the good reviews, all was gone. And I don't know if it was real or not. How could it be real? How? could it not be like a psyop or a play or something to, to break the really hard cases or something, a psyop. And maybe somehow it was. But that's not what I was meant to believe. If it was, I was meant to believe it was real. And I do believe it was real. And that's the opening scene of the Nothin movie. I'm a veteran. And yeah, I'm not the right kind of veteran, I guess. But nobody knows what I went through. They already made their judgments. They don't know a damn thing. I guess I wanted to confess that all the things happening in the world today, I bear a responsibility for. Even the parts that I don't like and don't want, especially those, my faults come. I take on myself the sins of the world. I join Jesus, my friend. And I don't forget him. I join him, taking on the sins of the world and bearing my responsibility for it, which is it looks like to me at points. Did you ever see the movie Logan's Run? That maybe I'm the guy in the box. And I'm dying. And this is all just a dream. I don't know, but I join this song. This song might be why Jesus is God. This has the possibility of being the song that I was supposed to write or something. I don't know. I apologize. I'm going to cut this short. I had to get this out of my system. My morning prayers this morning were severe. And I joined Jesus. I gladly joined Jesus, even in hell, in the lowest sewer, the lowest hell, if that's what it takes. I will be with my friend, my Creator, my God. Jesus is God in my heart. That's all. That says it all right there. God, please bless and keep us all. I don't know if I'll leave this one up or not. God, please bless and keep us all. Merry, happy holidays. Holy days. Happy holy days.